Creating a bottle web application cannot be easier if you follow this video. I'm going to create a web app using the bottle framework. We're going to obviously use Python. We're going to use MySQL as our database, and we're going to deploy to Amazon Web Servers. I'm going to use a third-party provider called PythonAnywhere, so you can see how easy it is to deploy this professional bottle application, and it's going to be encrypted as well. Let me show you how to do this. What we need to have installed in our computers is Python. Go to python.org and install it. I have already done this. You just have to follow the downloads and go ahead and install Python. You will also need to install MySQL, which is inside mysql.com. Go and find the community edition, download it and install it. You will also need to have PythonAnywhere. Let me show you this thing about PythonAnywhere. I'm going to log out first of all and pretend that this is the first time you're going to sign up. You have two options with this third development tool or server. If you go to just pythonanywhere.com, the servers will be hosted outside the European Union. But if you do eu.pythonanywhere.com, then you will be hosting inside the European Union. And if you are aware about the laws for it, it's called the GDPR license for it. I have hosted my application inside eu.pythonanywhere.com. So in order for me to log in, I will have to go to that domain name, and then I will just do my login username and my password. This, by the way, is not paid by anybody. I'm not sponsored by PythonAnywhere. I'm just doing this because behind the scenes, I am deploying into Amazon Web Servers for free and without any issues whatsoever. It's straight out of the box. If we go to my dashboard now, you can see that I have my main control panel, nothing special about it. Consoles is if we want to just create a console where we can run commands. We're not going to use this. Files is the place where all our files are located, Python files, CSS, JavaScript files. Web is where we're going to deploy our web application. At the moment it's empty. Tasks, it's used if you want to create cron jobs. We're not going to use that. And databases is the tab where we can create our MySQL database, give it a password, and then we can host our data right in here. So now we're going to deploy locally our bottle application, and then we're going to deploy it to the production server. By the way, when we create this web app, you will see how I can actually encrypt. So this will be running on HTTPS. Go ahead and create a folder anywhere you want in your computer. I have a folder called bottle-mysql-aws. That is just placed somewhere in my computer. It doesn't matter where you place it. It doesn't matter how you call the folder. Once you are inside that folder, let's open the terminal. And inside this terminal, I'm going to create a virtual environment for Python. So as you can see, I'm already pointing to that folder. So we are going to do py. If you're in a Mac computer, you may need to do py3, but since I installed the latest version of Python in my computer, I just do py. And then we're going to do py-m, that's the module. We're going to install the VM and then the dot. That means that inside this folder, we're going to install all the files needed to create a virtual environment. Press enter, and it will take a couple of seconds, and all the needed files will be set up right inside this folder. Let me show you that here. Now I have these folders and that file. Once we have done that, we are going to install the virtual environment. Let me just do that. So what we do is we say press the letter tab or the key tab on your keyboard. So you go to the script and then you press the letter A and then tab again. Let me do that again for you. You press the letter S, tab, A, tab, and then press enter. And now you can see that the prompt changed to this green highlighted in between the parentheses. And that just means that we have a virtual environment set up. If you want to see what this contains, you can do pip list. And this is the only thing I have right now. The pip command and the setup tools. If you get this warning message, it's not going to affect your application at all. But if you want to, you can copy and paste that command, press enter, and then this will just upgrade the pip tool for you. You don't have to do this part here. It takes a couple of seconds and you have it done. All right, so far, if we do pip list, you can see that I don't have Bottle installed in my machine. So I will do pip install Bottle. And since we are also going to use MySQL, I'm going to say pip install mysql-connector-python. Press enter. And now we can do a pip list again. And we have all the packages needed. We have Bottle, and then we have the connector to Python for MySQL. Now we can go ahead and create our application. To connect to MySQL, you can use many different GUI tools like phpMyAdmin or Workbench, SQL Yoke, Table Plus, any of those popular GUI applications. But I prefer to use the one that is embedded inside vscode, or actually is a plugin to vscode. It's called MySQL. So if you just search for it, you're going to find the first match. And this is the application, the plugin that I have installed in my computer. So once you have done that, you're going to see that this icon pops up on the left panel. Click on it, and there are no connections just yet. So let's go and click on the plus sign. And this is just going to allow us to connect to the SQL server. Most likely you don't have to touch any field here except for the root password. And I'm just going to do this in purpose. I will leave this password empty. I will try to connect and you will see that nothing really happens. So if I just show you the panel again, there's no connection in here because I have a password that I gave when I set it up. It's called root. So I will just write root. I don't recommend that you do this, but if it's only just locally developed, it's fine. Let's connect now, and you can see that now I'm connected to the server. What we're going to do after the connection is ready, we're going to create a company database. By the way, these are just the users. Don't touch them. I'm using the root user. Let's click on this open query icon and let's create a query. Create database. Let's call it company. You can call this anything you want. And then we're going to set up the character set to be UTF-8 MB4. This will allow us to have every character available, including emojis. Now you're going to go and press Ctrl plus Shift, and then you're going to do plus P. This will allow us to enter the run command so this can be executed. So I'm going to do that, Ctrl Shift P, and then you type run MySQL, and then you get this out, press on it, click on it, and as soon as you do that, this will show up. If you have a typo in this command, this will not show up. So now you can see that the database has been created successfully, and now we need to create a table inside this database. Let's close this. You can save this if you want it. Let's close that. Now let's check this SQL icon again. You can see that I have the company database, and now we're going to create a command to create a table. So let's do the same thing as we did before. Inside the company database, we can just run a new query. You can also right click and say open query if you want it. And this will allow us to create a table. Now I have something here because I was doing a test. I will just close it, and I will do it just like if I were in your computer. So let's click on the Open Query tab, and now we're going to create a query to create a table. So let's say create table, let's call it users, and we're going to set up a few elements inside the user. We just call it user_ID. This will be serial, which is the same as saying big integer, unsigned, auto increment, not null. It's going to be our primary key, by the way. We're going to do a username. That's going to be a varchar. Let's do 20 characters for it. And let's also say that this has to contain some data, so it's going to be a not null. Copy and paste it, and let's do it for the user last name as well. This will do. The only thing we need to do is let's set up the engine of it, and the engine will be the InnoDB engine. I think this is enough. You don't really need this part here, but let's just run it. You can save it if you want it. I just did so. And then we do Control-Shift-P again, and then we run the query one more time. Now you can see that this was successfully executed, and that's quite good. Now we're just going to look at the table here, and we can see that we have the table users that has been created. So now we're ready to go ahead and code our bottle application so we can populate the users table and get some data out of it. So let's move to the files, create a new file, call it server.py. I already have that file, by the way, sorry. Let's just open it. And what we're going to do here is we are going to import what's needed to do bottle. So from bottle, we're going to import, and this is a few things that you need to know, since this is going to be a professional application that's going to work in the exact same way when I do development in my local computer or when I deploy to AWS via PythonAnywhere. This is what you need to learn now. So we need to open the default app that's part of the bottle framework. We're going to use the run function. We're also going to use the get function. So you need to understand that a few things are used in development mode and other things are used in production mode. So what I will also do is I'm going to do this with comments so you can fully understand it. And I will do just 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 comments. And I will do it with 3 lines like so. So the code that will be inside this element with these 3 lines and those 3 lines will be what I will call a smart code, meaning that it knows if we're in development mode or it knows if we are in production mode. So we're going to do a try catch here. And by the way, if you have comments about it, please let me know. Try except, except. And this is something that I came up with before I did this video tutorial. So I really hope that you can just put a comment if you come up with a better solution. So what I did is I said that I want to import a file called production. You can call this file anything you want. And as you can see, I do not have this production file inside the local environment. And that is the good thing about it, because if this does not exist, it will go directly to the exception. So it will go right here. And that's going to be the difference between development in localhost and development in production. So I'm going to configure the database. So let's just check again the pip list so you can see where I'm getting this from. And you can see that I already have mysql-Python connector installed. So what I will do is I'm just going to import it. And then I will say import mysql.connector. I also know that I will be using JSON because you will see that I create a simple API with it. So I will also import JSON. Once you have imported the SQL connector, we are just going to try inside production. So now all this is just for production. Let me put a comment about it. So right here, this will be production, and the section will be development. So inside production, I'm going to create a dvconfig dictionary. And over here, I'm just going to put everything that I need to connect to the database in PythonAnywhere. So I will have the host key. At the moment, I don't know the key for the host. I will have the user. I do not know the user just yet. We're going to have a password, same thing, we don't know about it. And we are going to have the database name that we're going to be using. So the database, we leave it just empty. So this is the configuration for the production server. Let's copy it. And we're going to do the configuration in development. The host is localhost. The user is called root. The password is also called root. And the database is called company. This we know about. So now we have this set up. If you want to get exceptions a little bit more explicit, you can say exception as EX or call it E, anything you want, and then you can just print EX if you wanted to see what's happening in development mode. So once we have done that, we can go ahead and connect to the database. Let's say db equals, and then we say mysql-connector-python. And we are going to use this config file, which we call dvconfig. So I just copy that name, and then we do the ** dvconfig. That just means that we are going to take this configuration in there if we're in development mode, and if we're in production mode, we will take this configuration right in there. This solution seems to be really smart for me at the moment. I know you can also just have an external file and have environmental variables to try to configure this, but I like this way. So we are going to create a cursor, and then we say from the DB, we are going to create the cursor. With this, we have set up the connection to the database, and now we need to actually create the run or the setup to run the application. So I'm going to copy these 3 lines again. Remember, everything inside the 3 lines just means that we are going to run in production or in development mode. Let me just copy all this better. Let's copy all that, and we're going to paste it. So right now I'm just going to delete everything inside this try and the catch, the exception here. Let me just see. Yeah, sorry for that. It's just this curly brace that confused me for a second. All right, so we have the try except again. If we are in production mode, we are going to also import production. This will not work if this is my local machine. So this will be for production, and I will just say that the application is going to be the default app underscore app. If you want to know where I get this from, it's right here. So this default app is going to be my application in production mode. But if we are running in development mode, we're just going to call the run. This run is coming from here, right there, run. So in development, we're just going to run, and we're going to say that the host is going to be localhost. We're going to set up the port number to be 80. We're going to set the debug to be true. And we also want to do the reloader to be true. Save it. And now when we run this file, we can just go to the terminal, and then we can say py. If you're in a Mac computer, remember py3. So I'm just doing py server.py. Press enter, and now you can see that it says here no module name production, no module name production, but the server starts anyway, and that's exactly what we wanted. because we are in development mode. So this line is being run and the database connection is actually running this part here. So now we're going to create a route and test the first route in the application. So let's create the seed users endpoint. So now we do a add get, and this get, by the way, is coming from that function, and this will run in production as well. That's the beauty of it. So we say that we are going to create a route called, let's call it seed users table. We're going to define the function, also called seed users table, and this function is going to just insert one user inside that table. Since we have this cursor, we're going to use it. So we say cursor.execute, and then we're going to create a SQL command. Just keep in mind that this is not securely or not advisable to do it, because I'm just going to hard code the values. But if those values were coming from a form, you will need to sanitize them. So right now I'm just going to hard code it. Insert into users, and then we're going to put the following values. Remember that I had, let me just show you this. If we open the database company, the table users, we have the ID, the name, and the last name. So the ID is auto increment, it was serial, the name is a varchar, and the last name is a varchar. So if you keep that in mind, knowing that the ID is auto increment, you can just set a null that will be for the ID. Let's set the name A. I do this with single quotes because that's a string and I am using double quotes externally, so I cannot reuse them. And then I will just do AA as the last name. Once you have created the execute cursor, we can just say that we want to commit. So we say database.commit. This is necessary, so this insertion takes actually place. And once we have committed, we can just return user created. Remember, this is not a tutorial about APIs. It's just so you can see how I deploy to AWS via PythonAnywhere. Save. And now I'm going to go to Postman. We're going to point to localhost, and the endpoint is called seed users table. So I will copy that. I will paste it. Hopefully we don't get into issues, or else I will show you how to debug it. Send the request, and it says done. Let's see that. That was not what I wanted. It should have said user created. Maybe that's coming from an older application that I have running. Let me just go and kill that application to get this one up. All right, so I have just killed that other application. Don't worry too much about it. It's because I did some tests on it. And now you can see that it displays here user created. So once we have that done, we know that this is working fine. Let's create a new route. Now I'm not going to do this with 3 lines. Remember, those 3 lines are just telling me that that's the difference between production and development. I will just do 1 line there and 1 line there, so you can see what that means. The lines doesn't mean anything. It's just for you and I to know what we're doing. Let's create a new route. Let's call a get again, and the endpoint will be get users. Let's define the function. Let's call it get users, why not? And that's the function. And what we're going to do, what we're going to do inside this function is we're just going to execute the cursor, and this cursor will execute the following command: select all from the table users. Once we have executed, we're going to get some rows back. So the rows, we just say the cursor should just fetch all, not capital A, by the way. And then we're just going to return the rows that we fetch, but we want to get it as JSON. So I'm going to say JSON.dump_s. That means dump a string out of the rows that we get. So let's save it. And now we're going to go to Postman. We're going to create a new tab, localhost / and remember the endpoint is called get users. So I copy and paste it. Send the request, and then we get user AAA. Let me see where that data is coming from. All right, so the data is coming from the database, obviously, yes, from the table. While I pause the video, just to make sure that everything was running okay, I have clicked twice on it, and that's why I have 2 users, and then I click another time, so I have my 3rd user. Let me do a quick test again. I'm going to insert the user called B with the last name BB, save it. I will move to Postman. I will seed the table again, send. And then if I refresh this endpoint, I should get the 4 user called B with BB. So this is working totally fine. The database is set up. Now we need to go and deploy this to AWS. All right, so log into eu.pythonanywhere.com or just pythonanywhere.com, depends where you selected your servers, and move to the web tab, click on it, and let's create a new web app. Now, this is going to be a free domain name. As you can see in my application is my username called coderspage, and then the path to the server. If you want to get rid of this and get your own domain name, you can just upgrade the application. I will not do that. So let's just create a new app and click on next. And what I will show you applies to also Flask. I will make a video about Flask and the deployment as well, but right now we're doing Bottle. By the way, now that you see Bottle again, it is not for small applications. Most people just say that because they read that somewhere. I have asked those YouTubers and in blogs, why are you saying that that's for small applications only? It's not. You can create a huge application with Bottle and it will be faster than Django or Flask and it will behave very well. So don't worry about it. Just select Bottle. And we're going to use Python 3.8, 3.7. We don't have a lot of differences here. I'm using 3.9 in production, in development as far as I remember. So I just select the same version. And don't touch any of these, just leave it as default. This Bottle-app is where we're going to deploy our application. So that Bottle app is what we call server in development mode. Just click next, don't change anything. A few seconds and then you will be up and running. So now we have our web application running. If you want to encrypt it, you will see how easy that is done. You just have to go here and enable it. We will do that as the last part of this video. So once we have the Bottle application running, we can go and create a database. Go to the database tab, create a database, give it a name, the exact same name as I gave it to my development database called company. You can call it anything you want again. And the password, you cannot just say root because this will need 8 characters at least. And then I will just do this root password. I will delete this database anyways after this video is done. And then we're going to create the database called company. I think I get the password again. Let me just make sure root. Okay, so my password has been changed. I guess it was working before as well. And this is what you need to pay attention to. So right now you have the, sorry, I just move away. So right now you have this host address. That's the database that we need to connect to when we're in development mode, in production mode. So copy this link or copy that text. Go to the production part of your database and in the host paste it. So this is how we're going to connect to the database. Copy the username called coders page, paste it in your computer. Obviously in your application is a different username. This coders page is something else as well as that one. The password is the password that you gave to your database. In my case, I call it root in production. And the database, here comes the tricky part. I know that you want to just do company, but let me save you from a lot of drawbacks that you will get. Your database is actually called your username, $, and then the database name. So in my case, it's called my username, $, the database name. So make sure that you have this before the company database and your username prepending it. That's it. So now you can save it. Now we have the database created, but we don't have the table called users. Let's click on this link so we start our database in the terminal. And now you can see that if we do show databases, for example, you can see that we have the coders page at company. And if we want to create the exact same table as the one that we have in development mode, let me see if I can just pull that up from here, the query. It's not there. Let me see if I can just say show table source. This has the username, the last name. Yeah, it has all that. Okay, we're not going to do that. We're just going to create it manually here. So we're going to say create table users. And if you remember the full command, we had to give the characteristics for that table here. So we say that the ID is going to be serial. Actually, we call it user ID, serial, and then we call it user name, and that was a varchar 20, and this was not null. And then we had the user last name, which was also a varchar 20, not null. And after all this, I'm not sure if this will run here in the terminal, but we had the engine that was the InnoDB, semicolon. Hopefully I don't have any typos. Let's run it. All right, query okay, rows affected. It seems to be okay. It seems that the table is running. So to check it, I just did use coders page at company, just so you know where I get it from. This is the database name. So you can just copy and paste it, semicolon, and then the database has been changed. And then we can say show tables. It doesn't have to be capital letters. It can be lowercase letters as well. And now you can see that I have the users table created. So this is everything we need for the database. Let me get out of here. We're going to go to the database's main link again. So the database has been created. And what we need to do is we need to deploy our application to PythonAnywhere. Let's go to the web tab. And you can see that we have our application not really running so far. So if I click on this link, you can see that it just says hello from bottle, but that's not what we fully want. I go back to it. And let me just walk you quickly through what we have here. We have all our Python files will be inside the my side. We have the working directory, and then we have the WSG server that we're using. So let's click on this configuration file for the WSG server. And you can see that this is the entry point for the server application. And you can see this file called bottle app. We're going to import the application function. Now, if I show you what I have in vscode, this will all make sense now. If we are in production mode right here, you can see that we have the application, which equals the default app. So this keyword application is this keyword there. And that means that if you change this to, for example, app, then you will need to change this to app. That's how they get linked, right? So I'm not going to change it, just so you know it. And I will leave it as it was. And this file called bottle app, you will see what that file contains. I just save it. Let's go back to now my side in the source code. Let me go to that directory. If you know how I go to that, you can also just go to files, go to my side, and then you can see the bottle app py right there. Click on it, and this is what PythonAnywhere provides you with. As you can see, this application equals default app. That's what I already explained to you. So this file is the entry point, as it is the server in our development environment. You can also call this in development mode bottle_app.py if that's what you wanted. Copy everything, just copy it and paste it right there. So we override the whole thing. It's the exact same file, the exact same setup, everything is the exact same thing, except for production we have this, and for production we have that. So now we can go ahead and save it. And now it's saved, fully saved. And what we need to do is we need to test it. So hopefully I'm not forgetting anything, or else it will be a good exercise so I can show you how I debug it. Let's go now to PythonAnywhere, coders page PythonAnywhere. So let me just get out from this file. Oh yeah, I know what I'm forgetting. Let's go to files again. Let's go to my side, and remember that I have just a production.py file that is the difference between development and the deployed server. So I'm going to create a new file here called production.py. Create the file. The file doesn't contain anything, just save it. And let's move back to my side again. So that was the difference. Now let's do a test. Let me open this web tab in a new window. And this is what I need to point to from Postman. As you can see, we can see the users table, and then we can get users. Let's start getting users then. codespage.eu.pythonanywhere/get-users. And I have an error that was not found. Let me see. Good exercise. Now that it's not found, I will show you what I do in this case. We go to the web tab, and then let's check the errors that we get here. Go to the error log, click on it, and scroll all the way down to see what the error is about. So in this case, it says here that I needed to see the users table. I wanted to select all from users, and this table coders page at company.users does not exist. I think this is pretty nice to see, so we can fix this here. So to fix the error, go to the web tab, and remember that in PythonAnywhere, every time you make a change to the main file or any other py file, you have to reload the application. So click on this button. It will restart the whole Python application. So it will connect correctly to the database. And once we have done that, we can go to Postman again. And when you send, you will see the empty array because we don't have any users in the database. So now when we go to the file called get users, that's the one that we're pointing to, we get nothing. Let's try to seed a user in the users table. Let's do actually, let's not change anything. It's already BBB. That's the code that has been uploaded to the server. This is the path that we need to copy now. Copy. Let's create a new tab. That's what I just copy and pasted. And we need to prepend the route with this URL. So we're saying that we go to my page and we're going to seed the users table, send the request. Now it says the user has been created. Let's go back to the get users API. Let's send the request. And now you can see that we have successfully connected to the database to insert and to fetch the data. Let's copy this URL. Let's move to the browser. Let's paste it. And now you can see the output that we get, but it is not secure. So to finalize this video, I told you that I will secure this web app. Let's go to PythonAnywhere again. Let's go to the web tab. And right here where it says force HTTPS, let's click on it. So we enable it. So now it is enabled. Please remember to relaunch the application. Takes a few seconds. And now that it's fully reloaded, we can go to the API, to the web app, reload, and you will see that now it is encrypted over HTTPS, as you can see it there. So a quick recap to the tutorial. We import all the files we need. We have this try except. If this file is found, that means that we are in production, and that means that this file does not exist in our local system, the production file, but it does exist in the production server. So I show you that here. We go to files, and then we go to my side, and then we have that file. And the only thing this does is just tells us that we are in production or we're in development. I hope that you learned many things from this video, and please subscribe, like it, let me hear your comments about it, and get notifications. Thank you very much.